Thanks for tuning in to more college football talk on the Our Football Network, specifically the Rutgers Football Report, as the Scarlet Knights move to 3-0 following their win over FCS Delaware on Saturday, and now turn their attention to Big Ten football this week against Michigan, the nation's leader in rushing yards, average per game. It's going to be a tough matchup, but we'll talk about that Delaware win first as I welcome in Ryan Dunleavy from the New York Post. Ryan, very comfortable, solid win over an FCS program.
Yeah. Look, in many ways, some people will tell you this was the most meaningless of the three Rutgers wins, right? It's an FCS team, whatever, they're not at the same competition level. In some ways, I'll tell you it was the most meaningful of the three Rutgers games because you could excuse away a loss at Syracuse. You might have even been able to excuse away a loss to Temple, but this would have been an inexcusable loss. And look, even in Gregiano's heyday, in the late decade of the 2000s, before the 2010s, 2008, 9. I've seen them lose to Tulane at home. I've seen them lose to,
New Hampshire?
When Flood was the coach, they lost to Kent State at home.
That's right. That was a bad one.
Yeah. I've seen them lose a lot of games where, they couldn't lose. They couldn't possibly lose the game. I'm not even talking about their early years when they lost to Villanova and New Hampshire. I'm talking about when he had the program really humming and they lost some inexplicable head scratchers. So, to me, I thought it was really impressive to see them do exactly what they had to do. As you and I talked about last week, Delaware's no pushover at their level. They were a top 10 program at the FCS level, and Rutgers, that game was never really in doubt at any time. So I thought they used it as a get-well game. Vedral got well. The offense got well. It was a get-well game and never in doubt and exactly what you wanted to see. And in some ways, like I said, I'll tell you, that was the most impressive, competition aside.
Yeah, because what we talked about last week was that this was the game that I actually feared the most because this would be the last game of the season and the only game of the season that Rutgers, you knew they were supposed to win. They were a 20-point favorite. And those are the games that you really you can't win almost. You can only lose.
Yeah.
And the fact that they never gave Rutgers fans any cause for pressure or any stress at all was very refreshing. Look, I have no idea how really good this Delaware team is, but I don't care. The fact is, Rutgers got the easy win. Look at Syracuse last week. They played an FCS team and they blew them out. And Rutgers went into Syracuse and beat them. So it's so early in the season, we still don't really know what we got with Rutgers yet. But I get the feeling we're going to find out on Saturday against Michigan because Harbaugh has finally changed that program around to what he should have been doing all along, was bring that running offense like he had at Stanford. That everything is about the offensive line and the running game and defense, and he's starting to do that again. And there's going to be a really big test against Michigan. But it's great to get over the non-conference schedule, 3-0, unblemished. It means they only have to win now 3 Big Ten games to go bowling.
Correct. And maybe there's 5 winnable games on the schedule, and now suddenly you don't have – see, here's where people screw up all the time, Greg. They count a winnable game as a win. If you don't think Syracuse was looking at Rutgers as a winnable game, they were. Yeah. And so you won your 3 – you did exactly what you had to do. You won your 3 non-conference games. So now maybe there's 5 games on your schedule you could feasibly win. You aren't beating Ohio State. You're not beating Penn State. You've never beaten Penn State.
Sure.
So count those off the list. There's 5 games you could win. Now you only have to win 3 of those, and you go bowling, which is the goal. You gave yourself a little margin for error.
Because look, when you go into the season, here's a few good points on schedule watching or predicting. Nobody would have thought. Look, Michigan was what 115th almost, or something like that in rushing offense last year, and now they're first. Okay, Ohio State. Rutgers is not going to beat Ohio State, but Ohio State has not played a clean game yet this season, and that includes Minnesota and that includes Tulsa. Okay. Michigan State's a lot better than anybody thought they were going to be when the season began. And that was a home game that I'm sure Rutgers fans felt, okay, we could beat Michigan State. We beat them on the road last year. I don't know about that. I think Michigan State's better than Rutgers. Wisconsin, all of a sudden, may be a winnable game the way Wisconsin has looked. Maryland, they look a lot better than we thought. And Indiana looks a lot worse than we thought. So you just can't tell from year to year when you try to do the schedule predicting. That's why it should just always be about, okay, here's the schedule. Like you just said, Ryan, there are those winnable games. There's the average. If we can get 3 out of the 5, then we're going bowling. And that's the way you got to look at it. Not, okay, W here, loss here, W here. It just doesn't work that way.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they have some margin for error. I think, I was shocked. You're the spreads guy. I thought Rutgers would be maybe a 2-point dog, 2-touchdown dog to Michigan. Maybe.
Wait. I don't even know the spread yet. Let me guess. I would have said Michigan would be like a 17-point favorite.
I think it's 19.
Okay. Well, what did you think?
I thought 14.
Okay. So, all right. Yeah. So they're a little, and I think they're finally, I think it's more about, to tell you the truth, I think there's a certain respect in that because Michigan is blowing everybody out now. And you could see the line start to go up and up and up on teams like Michigan. So 20 is actually at home at Michigan, a little bit of respect for Rutgers in my mind. So
I guess. I guess. I don't see that. I thought it was disrespectful. I mean, a 19-point underdog to I mean Michigan, I guess. They took them to triple overtime last year.
Well, that's why I was saying this Michigan team is completely different than the team we saw last year. Psychologically and on the field.
Why? Because they beat Washington?
No, because again, the way that they're playing. Because they're running the football down everybody's throats. And that's the problem Rutgers. Rutgers, we talked about this last week. They are now 15th in total defense nationally, 15th in pass defense, but they're 49th in run defense. And we knew that was the problem coming into the season. And if they can't stop Michigan's rushing attack, it's going to be a long day.
Correct. Yeah.
But I don't know about the opposite. I think Rutgers might be able to move the football against Michigan. I don't think Michigan has been tested defensively yet. And that's why I think there's a shot, especially with Noah finally playing the way that we need Noah to play like. Yeah, there were still a couple of bad misses, but overall, he had his best game that we've seen him play in a while. And that was important coming into this Michigan game.
Yeah, he hit some deep balls. And look, what he has to do is throw the ball in the right spot for Rutgers receivers to catch and run. Because Rutgers has some good catch and run receivers. So he has to make sure the ball hits them, in stride, not behind them. And let them, he can get a 45-yard pass. That's really a 15-yard pass if he hits Bo Melton in stride. That's really what he needs to do.
Overall, they're still second in the nation in turnover margin because they haven't turned the ball over yet. 8-0. They didn't have a turnover in the game, though, on Saturday, did they?
No.
Yeah, no. That was the first game that they haven't turned the ball over their opponent in 8 or 9 straight games or something like that. But also, Cole Snyder got an opportunity to play. Kind of thought Cole Snyder should have been in there maybe a series or two earlier, but okay, I'm not gonna complain too much. When Vedral came out that last series after the Delaware quarterback after they went to their backup, I was like, what is he doing out there? He throws that pass out of bounds and then he runs off the field. I think Shiano probably just wanted him to maybe get a standing ovation or something like that to leave the field. But it was
not much Johnny Langdon in this game either.
No, what did he have? He did have one pass, Langdon.
Yeah, no rushes.
Yeah, no. He didn't really do much, which I'm okay with. But Pacheco also played a little bit better. It was good that the Pacheco ran better. He ran violently. I know that, what's his name? Matt Millen was awfully impressed with the way the Rutgers running backs were physically running the football in the game. And Brandon Sanders, that's very important. Brandon Sanders, the FCS transfer, had that really big, long touchdown catch. And we said this last week. Rutgers has got to get a really good number 2 or even a number 3 option along with Cruikshank. Maybe Sanders is the guy.
Yeah.
Cruikshank, another punt return touchdown. How about that? He's awesome, isn't he?
He's something, man. He really is. He's dazzling. He might have NFL in his future just for that skill.
I think so. I mean, when Tutu Atwell can get drafted in the 4th round by the Rams, I think Cruikshank can get drafted in the 4th or 5th round in the NFL too. Come on.
I might be pushing it, but yeah, we'll see. Yeah.
Julius Turner and Aaron Lewis had a sack and a half. We said this before the season. I just really like Turner. I think Turner is going to be one of these 6th, 7th round draft picks that's going to go under the radar, and I think he's going to have a pretty good NFL career.
Yeah, he's a little undersized. That's what scares me.
He is.
Plays with so much heart, and look, he might really be. We talked about Michigan running the ball. There might not be a more important player in this game next weekend than Julius Turner.
This is going to be a big reflection on the run defense. It's a scary run offense, and look, I don't think they're going to face a better run offense all season. So, I guess if they can hold Michigan to maybe 200 yards rushing, which is, I know it's a lot, but for the way Michigan's going, I think it's acceptable.
Yeah,
I'd be okay.
Yeah, that's probably fair. Yeah. You know how I love to live in alternate universes, Greg. I can't, as this game rolls around, I can't help but think of when Gregiano had that offer to become Michigan's coach in 2007, 2008, and Rutgers fans were panicked that he was going to leave, and then somehow, let's just say he might have had something to do with the idea that when he turned the job down, it went to Rich Rodriguez, the coach who Gregiano could never seem to beat in the Big East. It was like a 2-for-1 for Greg. I'll get a raise to stay at Rutgers, and I'll get this guy who's a thorn in my side in the Big East. I'll get him out of here, and I'll send him over to Michigan, and maybe I can finally beat West Virginia. It felt like a 2-for-1. I think back on that as this week comes around. I think back on how different things would have been maybe if Greg had taken that Michigan job. How different both programs might have looked, how different his career would be. Certainly probably would not be the head coach of wouldn't be riding back in on a knight's horse to a hero's welcome if he had left for Michigan rather than if he had left for
the
NFL.
Yeah, that's true. And speaking of Rich Rodriguez, he is now the offensive coordinator for Louisiana Monroe.
Wow. How the mighty have fallen.
Incredible. And the funny thing is, he was actually a better coach than Brady Hoke, because at least Rodriguez's offenses were fantastic. The defenses were terrible. Like, if he actually just hired a good defensive coordinator at one time, they might have turned out okay. And now he's the offensive coordinator at Louisiana Monroe. So, yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. All right, so.
It's funny.
What's that?
You would think he might end up back at West Virginia at some point, you know?
I think he's going to – he's too talented. He's got to return to coaching as a head coach at some point somewhere. Got to. I mean, you know who the head coach is at Louisiana Monroe?
No idea.
Terry Bowden.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Terry Bowden, the head coach, and Rich Rodriguez is the offensive. I mean, that's it is one of the worst jobs in FBS football, though. Louisiana Monroe. Yeah. That's as bad as it gets. What's your feeling on the game? I know it's early in the week. It's only Monday when we're recording. By the way, just want to remind everybody, Richie Schneiderwright is going to be with me on Thursday, and we're going to get a detailed preview of the Michigan game and also go inside the roster because Richie knows a lot of stuff that we don't. So what's going on behind the scenes and certain players and things that recruiting. So Wimsat's be a topic of course. So that'll be on Thursday. But what do you think about the game on Monday, Ryan?
I think Rutgers hangs in there, gives you a respectable effort. Probably loses the game by somewhere like 10 points. If you asked me to make a pick, I'd say 31-21 Michigan would probably be my pick. Look, I'm not buying Michigan like everybody else is, but like it sounds like you're buying Michigan.
What's buying them though? What meaning?
It
What?
sounds like the whole world is ready to buy Michigan. Like they're ready to compete, to be that second best team in the Big Ten behind Ohio State. I'm not buying it.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I'm not buying playoffs.
No,
I'm not
but
buying.
You're ready to buy them as the Big Ten second best team. I'm not ready to buy them there yet. So
meaning Penn State second.
Right now, yeah.
Okay.
So let me see. It could be Wisconsin. So yeah,
I'm buying them to be better than Wisconsin, but we'll see. I agree. Yeah, let's find out on Saturday.
Let me see them beat some Big Ten teams.
You're right. You're right.
And
just like Rutgers.
Down this road of inferior competition and the very soft Pac-10. I mean, or Pac-12. I can't even give you much on that Washington win because Washington had lost out to an FCS team week 1.
Oregon did beat Ohio State though, which again I think tells you that
they didn't play Oregon. They played Washington.
No, I'm just saying in the Big Ten scope of things versus the Pac-12. So but yes, historically, and if Oregon doesn't beat Ohio State, Pac-12 is the same Pac-12 has always been. So they've had one win.
It is minus Oregon.
But that's why. Same thing for Rutgers. This is going to be a big barometer test to find out where Rutgers is.
Here's Jim Harbaugh is, I think, on that Bo Pelini track where he's 9-4, 10-3 every year at a school that expects to be 12-1, 13-0. And he'd be gone long ago if he wasn't a favorite son of the university.
Oh, no question, he would have been gone a couple of years ago if that wasn't the case. But what he did this offseason is he cleaned the house of all the older coaches, the Don Browns and all the old guys who didn't communicate with young players today. And he smartly brought in a bunch of young coaches, including the defensive coach from the Ravens, who's now the coordinator. Like I said, the philosophy's changed. So he's starting to learn that what I was trying to do, whatever the reason was stupid. Let me go back to square one. And so far it's working. But just like with Rutgers, we'll see. It's game 4. I agree. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be one-score game in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. So I promised everybody a little inside story last week when we talked. I'll tell everybody a little inside story.
Okay.
So 2017, I was the Rutgers football beat writer for NJ.com. And I was doing a story on all of the New Jersey prospects in the Big Ten. So I went on all of the New Jersey alumni in the Big Ten. So I went through each roster, right? And I'm making this up, but Rutgers had 35 kids from New Jersey. Wisconsin had 7. Penn State had 24. And I got everybody's list. And then I go to the Michigan roster, and it still has like Jabril Peppers listed on it. And he's in the NFL. He's a rookie in the NFL. And it still has a couple other guys listed on it. And it doesn't have, I don't know, Rashawn Gary, who would have been a true freshman. It doesn't have him listed. I said, this is last year's roster. And it's like August, okay? It's like August. Training camp's almost here. And it's actually, yes, it looks like it was August 11th of 2017. And I'm like, what is this? How do you not have a roster on your website? What is this? So I emailed the school and I asked for a roster, and they said not giving out a roster. And let's be clear here. I'm not talking about a depth chart. I wasn't looking for who's the starter at each position. Just tell me the names of the players on your football team is all I want.
It's like the Bill Belichick of college.
Correct. They wouldn't do it. So I put in a Freedom of Information Act request.
Oh!
Which is what you do that's how Chris Christie's Bridgegate happened. That's what you do when you want like financial documents or like somebody's emails.
Hey, use it.
Government employee.
Yeah.
That's how and I put it in for a football roster just to make a mockery of how ridiculous this was. And I wrote a story. Why is Michigan hiding its football roster? And I guess nobody knew that this was happening because this story blew up, right? I mean, it blew up. It was everywhere. Scott Van Pelt did a segment on SportsCenter Why is Michigan hiding its football roster? Just because I was just like, they made my job harder, so I wanted to make their job harder. All I wanted was the names of the football players, to do one paragraph on Michigan having X number of players.
Sure.
So the story blew up. It got national attention to the point where Jim Harbaugh actually had to send a tweet to calm people down about why he was not sending out a football roster.
What was his excuse?
I can't remember off the top of my head, but it became this like national story for a week. It was kind of hilarious. Harbaugh had to tweet about it. Certainly cost him some time, which, he had cost me plenty of time because he was delaying my story. He actually ended up giving me a much better story than he would have if he just told me we have 13 kids on the roster. So it was kind of a fun time, kind of a fun story. I just, as you know, I just have no tolerance for like CIA football coaches who act like it's the CIA.
Yeah,
Joe Judge is not like that at all, even though everybody tries to group Bill Belichick assistants together. I just have no tolerance for this is the CIA of the world, like, because, it's not. You're a football coach. Tell us who's on your team. You want to hide your depth chart? That's fine. Tell us the names of the players who are receiving free scholarships to go to your university. So,
by the way, did they change any?
Kind of a funny thing that ended up happening. They didn't send out. I guess they won in the end because they didn't have to send out a roster till like week 1 of the season. So, but I got plenty of people talking about what I thought was a crazy thing at the time.
Have you checked it out to see if they've changed any?
I haven't. No, I left soon after. That was 2017 was my last.
Well, I doubt they've changed any because I know Dan Shanka, who owns our lads, because Dan actually paid me a couple of times a couple of years ago during the spring to help him with updating some of the depth charts at college because it's time consuming. So, and I remember the whole Michigan thing, and he told me, he goes, forget Michigan. You're never going to get anything out of it. So he goes, I'll take care of it. So don't worry about it. So yeah, he said, Harbaugh's just like Belichick. So, yep. And so that's probably what he does. Every year he probably doesn't have it until the very beginning of the season or probably after the first game. And then he throws it up on the website. So, but then depth charts, forget it. You're still never going to get depth charts from Michigan. Correct. Never. No, and like you said, it's silly.
One of the 9 million places the NCAA has no teeth. Like, how is it not a rule that you have to have a depth chart and a roster? I don't know.
Yeah.
So certainly is in the NFL.
Things are going awfully fast in college football, aren't they? With the whole college players are getting paid, and what they're saying now is, okay, well, this is going to affect players from wanting to leave earlier and go to the NFL. If that happens, then shouldn't college football then turn it back around and say, okay, well, the reason we allowed you to leave early was because we wanted to give you an opportunity to make money in the pros. But if you're going to leave early in the pros because of money, then it's no longer 2 years. We're going to go back to 3 years of eligibility. So you can't leave until the third year.
Nah, they'll lose that case too. You can't restrict people's human rights at this point. They're not going to.
Are they just going to leave when they're freshmen and sophomores now?
I
don't think they can. They're just too small.
I don't think they can physically.
Yeah,
I think
physically they can't.
If they had a union of players who was willing to sue for that, I think they would win that right too.
Probably. I'm okay with the transfer rule. I think it makes it a lot funner because you get players that are stuck behind other players at great teams, and now they're playing elsewhere. I just think it's better. I see guys from Utah State as a quarterback that was a really good Sun Belt quarterback, and now he's at Utah State. And if he wasn't there, they wouldn't be any good. But now he's there, and they're actually a good team again.
Yeah.
I think that's really good for the sport. So. All right, anyway, Ryan, next week we'll recap the Michigan game, and then it's Ohio State home week. So how about that? Michigan, Ohio State, back-to-back. I hope they survive this 2-week stretch. You think there's a chance they pull off an upset here in the next 2 weeks?
I don't think there's a chance now. I think they'll play tough in the Michigan game. I think they'll probably score but get waxed against Ohio State. And then who's the opponent after that?
I think Michigan State's after that.
And then there you go. That's the tell-all game.
If they can come back after those two and beat a good football team.
Yeah, that's the tell-all.
That's Michigan State. Because then after that, it's back-to-back road games, winnable road games at Northwestern and at Illinois.
There you go. So,
if they can win one out of the next three, go to those two road games, definitely have to win one of two.
Yeah.
Then now all of a sudden you got 5 wins with what, 3-4 games left? So
there you go.
All right, let's hope it all works out. Let's hope everybody stays healthy, and let's hope it's a fun game. Ryan, I appreciate it. Don't forget, we'll be back on Thursday with Richie Schneiderite from Rivals to talk more about this Michigan game, and I'll talk to you next Monday. And hopefully we'll have a special guest in the next couple of weeks, too, that we're working on.
Yep, hopefully. Sounds good. Thanks.
You got it, Ryan.